That's a good pass underneath, and the finish by Angel Reese. And she'll be going to the line.
The moment Chicago moved on from Angel Reese, the entire temperature of the league seemed to shift, almost like someone had quietly changed the settings on a system everyone thought they understood. A two-time All-Star and one of the most physically dominant rebounders in the game was sent out in a deal focused more on future draft capital than immediate star return, executed so quickly and cleanly that it left little time for speculation. Yet the aftermath became the real headline because suddenly Chicago no longer carried the label of a place players hesitated to join, and instead started attracting attention from established veterans and high-level talent like Skylar Diggins, Dejounte Carrington, Azure Stevens, and Rick Jackson, who all came in with immediate conviction rather than slow deliberation, creating the sense of a roster flipping from uncertainty to urgency almost overnight. And that shift forces a sharper look at what actually changed in perception once Reese was out of the equation. Her production still reads like that of a cornerstone in development, putting up around 14 points per game while owning the boards with nearly 13 rebounds across 64 career appearances, stacking 2 early All-Star selections, and building a historic rookie run of consecutive double-doubles that put her in rare company among elite bigs, while also leading the league in rebounding in both Chicago seasons with 13.1 and 12.6 per game respectively, numbers that clearly signal dominance, consistency, and long-term potential. Yet even with that level of individual control, the team results never aligned, underscored by a 13-27 finish in her first year that exposed a widening disconnect between statistical impact and actual winning, turning her tenure into a case study of how production doesn't always translate into team transformation.
For Middle Tennessee, transition defense, and if they can get stops, they're going to get out and try to score quickly in transition.
That's a good pass underneath, and the finish by Angel Reese.
From there, Chicago's downward spiral only became harder to ignore as the second season unraveled into a 10-34 finish that signaled not just growing pains, but a franchise struggling to find direction despite staying committed to the same focal point, ultimately resulting in a combined 23-61 record over 2 years with no playoff appearances, no meaningful progression, and a win rate that reflected just how far the team fell short of expectations with Angel Reese positioned as the centerpiece. On the surface, her production still drew attention, especially through rebounding numbers that were frequently described as historic and even placed in conversations with elite benchmarks in league history. But a closer reading of the context created a more complicated picture, where critics pointed to the nature of some of those rebounds and the efficiency behind her scoring profile, highlighting stretches where missed close-range attempts were followed by second-chance opportunities that still counted in the same column statistically, while her overall shooting efficiency around the basket and from the field remained inconsistent for a player operating primarily in the paint. At times, individual games like a matchup against the New York Liberty in 2025 were used as examples of these patterns, where strong rebounding stretches did not always translate into scoring output or momentum shifts. And over the broader sample, her efficiency metrics and turnover issues became part of a wider debate about impact versus volume, especially as defensive attention increased and possessions became harder to convert, leaving Chicago in a difficult position where high individual activity did not consistently translate into team success, and that gap between production and winning ultimately defined the conversation around her role in a struggling but highly scrutinized roster.
Territory. Reese on the block, going at Alexander, turns, spins, squares up, it's good.
Away from the box score and the constant debate over statistics, the conversation around Chicago's two-season stretch increasingly shifted into narratives about chemistry, communication, and locker room dynamics, where speculation and fan-driven reports began to blur the line between performance criticism and internal storytelling. Courtney Vandersloot, a highly decorated veteran and respected leader with championship experience and multiple All-Star honors, returned to Chicago in a stabilizing role during a rebuilding phase, but after injury setbacks and a difficult team stretch, online discourse and unverified reports began suggesting there were growing tensions within the roster as frustration built during repeated losses and shifting rotations, with Angel Reese frequently placed at the center of those discussions in broader media narratives. While Vandersloot's leadership status and experience made any perceived disagreement more heavily scrutinized by fans and commentators alike. At the same time, younger core players such as Camila Cardoso were also pulled into the wider conversation about team cohesion and adjustment pressures inside a developing roster, with various interpretations of sideline moments and team interactions fueling speculation about disconnects that may or may not have reflected the reality inside the organization. Tension around chemistry and stability started to grow louder than the basketball itself. Cardoso, known for her steady presence and low-drama approach to the game, became part of a broader discussion about how the roster was functioning as a whole, especially in a season where body language, rotations, and late-game frustration moments were heavily analyzed from the outside, including clips that spread online and fueled debate about engagement and direction. As the losses piled up, Chicago's season narrative shifted further away from development and closer to pressure, leading to heightened scrutiny on leadership, accountability, and internal decision-making. While Angel Reese, already one of the most talked-about young stars in the league, remained at the center of the attention due to both her production and the constant media focus around her role in the team's trajectory. At that point, every on-court struggle and every visible emotional reaction became part of a larger storyline about whether the group was still aligned with the franchise's direction. And in that kind of environment, even routine setbacks began to feel amplified against cohesion. And, according to reports surrounding the franchise's decision-making process, that balance became increasingly difficult to sustain, leading to a major roster pivot on April 6, 2026, when the Sky sent Reese to the Atlanta Dream in exchange for future draft capital including 2027 and 2028 first-round picks, and a second-round swap. A move officially framed by General Manager Jeff Pagliacca as part of a broader effort to restore roster flexibility and long-term structure, while also aligning with a longer-running interest in reshaping the team's identity around different personnel fits. In the end, whether viewed through the lens of performance, chemistry, or strategic direction, the decision marked a clear turning point for Chicago, signaling that the organization had chosen future flexibility and roster balance over continuing to build around its existing centerpiece. In many cases, when a franchise parts ways with a star, the process is slow, calculated, and centered around extracting maximum value. But Chicago's approach in this situation was described far more as a rapid pivot than a prolonged negotiation, as they accepted a future-focused package from the Atlanta Dream built around draft assets rather than established players. A decision that was widely interpreted as a clear shift in direction rather than a traditional blockbuster exchange. In the aftermath, Angel Reese continued to voice her perspective in interviews, including remarks to the Chicago Tribune emphasizing the need for stronger, championship-caliber support around her, comments that fueled ongoing debate about fit and expectations before and after the move. While broader reporting and fan discussion painted contrasting interpretations of the locker room climate and organizational response during that period, with some framing it as a necessary reset and others viewing it through the lens of a difficult but evolving rebuild. Following the trade, Chicago's front office moved quickly to reshape the roster and identity of the team, with subsequent additions such as Skylar Diggins-Smith on a multi-year deal highlighting a clear emphasis on experience, leadership, and proven postseason pedigree, alongside further roster adjustments, including the return of Azura Stevens, moves that were widely seen as part of a broader recalibration of the team's direction under head coach Tyler Marsh, who emphasized stability and fit as central priorities moving forward. Within that broader transition, symbolic and roster-level changes alike signaled a new chapter for the franchise, as Chicago attempted to redefine its structure and competitive trajectory around a different blend of veterans and complementary pieces, shifting away from the previous core and toward a rebalanced roster construction aimed at immediate cohesion and long-term competitiveness. In the span of a remarkably short turnaround, Chicago's roster construction shifted into what many around the league described as a full-scale reset, driven less by incremental changes and more by a coordinated wave of acquisitions aimed at redefining both identity and competitiveness. Azra Stevens' return stood out as a foundational move, bringing back a player who had previously been part of Chicago's 2021 championship group before elevating her production with the Los Angeles Sparks, where she posted career-best averages of 12.8 points and 8 rebounds while finishing second in Most Improved Player voting, ultimately returning on a multi-year deal and framing the move as a personal and professional homecoming rooted in familiarity and fit. While Dejounte Carrington's addition on a one-year contract brought immediate defensive intensity and two-way versatility following her breakout 2024 campaign that included Most Improved Player recognition and all-defensive first-team honors, signaling a clear emphasis on raising the team's competitiveness on both ends of the floor. Rickea Jackson's arrival from the Los Angeles Sparks further strengthened that direction, as she was acquired in a move that surprised observers given her emerging scoring profile and growing league reputation, while Chicago also added depth and development assets through players like J.C. Sheldon, a top 5 pick from the 2024 draft, and Gabriela Jaquez from UCLA in the 2025 draft, alongside retaining veterans such as Courtney Vandersloot and Rachel Banham to stabilize the rotation. Together, these moves created a dramatically reshaped roster structure in a matter of days, transitioning Chicago into a more balanced and versatile group centered around Skylar Diggins-Smith's playmaking, Carrington's defensive pressure, Stevens' front-court versatility, Jackson's scoring upside, and Camila Cardoso's interior presence, forming a lineup built on shared responsibility rather than singular reliance. And in that shift, league perception changed just as quickly as personnel did, with increased interest from players and agents reflecting a renewed confidence in the organization's direction, while Angel Reese's transition to Atlanta became part of a broader league-wide discussion about fit and timing as the Dream integrated her alongside established contributors like Ryan Howard, Alisha Gray, and Tina Charles. Ultimately, what stood out most in the aftermath was how rapidly perception, interest, and roster movement aligned once Chicago's internal structure was redefined, reinforcing how quickly opportunity and attraction can shift in professional sports when organizational direction becomes clear. What Chicago assembled in that brief window was less a standard offseason and more a full-scale redefinition of its basketball identity, with Azra Stevens' return anchoring the process after she came back from a strong 3-year stretch with the Los Angeles Sparks, where she emerged as a consistent two-way frontcourt presence, averaging a career-high 12.8 points and 8 rebounds per game, finishing second in Most Improved Player voting, and framing her return as a homecoming tied to familiarity, opportunity, and past championship experience in 2021. Alongside her, Dejounte Carrington's arrival on a 1-year deal immediately elevated the team's defensive profile, bringing all-defensive first-team recognition from 2024 and a reputation for guarding multiple positions at a high level, while Rickea Jackson's acquisition from the Sparks added a young, high-upside scoring threat whose rapid rise and 2025 MVP consideration made her one of the more intriguing offensive additions in the league, especially given that Chicago secured her without parting with a first-round pick, a detail that stood out in league-wide evaluations of the move. The reshaping continued through the draft and depth building, with J.C. Sheldon added as a former top 5 pick, Gabriela Jaquez selected out of UCLA, and veteran continuity maintained through the re-signings of Courtney Vandersloot and Rachel Banham, creating a roster that combined experience, youth development, and specialized roles rather than relying on a single focal point. Strategically, the rotation began to form around Skylar Diggins-Smith's control of pace and decision-making, Carrington's perimeter defense, Stevens' spacing and versatility, Jackson's scoring ability, and Camila Cardoso's interior presence, producing a more balanced structure designed to distribute responsibility across multiple creators and defenders, and in doing so, shifting how the team was perceived internally and across the league. As the roster came together, broader league sentiment reflected a noticeable increase in interest toward Chicago from players and agents, signaling how quickly perception can change when organizational clarity and fit improve, while Angel Reese's move to Atlanta became part of the wider competitive landscape alongside established contributors like Ryan Howard, Alisha Gray, and Tina Charles, ultimately underscoring a league-wide reality that in professional basketball, shifts in environment, structure, and cohesion can rapidly reshape both opportunity and perception across franchises. In professional basketball, reputations rarely shift through official statements. They form quietly through conversations that travel faster than any headline, as agents compare notes, players discuss fit in private group chats, and front offices adjust their expectations based on what they hear rather than what is publicly said. And in that kind of environment, roster perception can harden long before anyone admits it out loud. Over time, that broader league chatter became part of how Chicago and later Atlanta were discussed in relation to roster construction and fit, especially as teams across the WNBA evaluated how different systems functioned under pressure, with some prioritizing continuity and spacing-based structures, while others continued searching for the right balance of talent and cohesion. In that same landscape, veteran movement across the league, including players like Brittany Griner, a two-time champion and former MVP, was shaped by a mix of competitive goals, roster alignment, and organizational direction, reflecting how experienced players often choose situations based on fit and stability as much as opportunity. At the same time, Atlanta's strong 2026 regular season performance, finishing near the top of the standings, became part of a wider analytical comparison point across the league, especially when contrasted with teams like Indiana, whose system built around Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell was frequently cited for its spacing, clarity of roles, and offensive flow, even when key players were unavailable. That contrast between system continuity and roster volatility became a recurring talking point in league discussions, with analysts and fans weighing how different construction philosophies affect postseason outcomes. And while teams like Atlanta continued to evolve their identity and Chicago had already undergone significant restructuring, the broader takeaway across the league centered less on individual narratives and more on how quickly competitive balance shifts when systems either stabilize or constantly reset, ultimately shaping how franchises are evaluated over time rather than through isolated seasons or single roster decisions. The separation between teams that are stabilizing and those still searching for identity is becoming more visible with each passing season. As Atlanta continues working to assemble a fully cohesive roster, Chicago has already gone through multiple phases of restructuring while adding new layers of talent, and the broader league landscape keeps shifting around these changes rather than settling after them. In that ongoing movement, players who were once positioned at the center of those roster discussions are now operating in entirely new contexts, while franchises adjust in real time to what works and what doesn't, often reshaping their direction year by year instead of finding immediate long-term balance. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's arrival in Indiana became a frequently cited example in league-wide analysis of how quickly a team's trajectory can change when system fit, spacing, and role clarity align. As the Fever moved from the bottom of the standings into playoff contention while increasing offensive cohesion and elevating overall team performance, which in turn contributed to a broader perception